Okay, good day everybody. My name is Mr. Manolo Magani and today I'll be giving a little brief explanation about option 3 for your career, which is class 3. Now class 3 is commonly called as the science group or the pure sciences class. First thing I want you to think about is why would you want to study science? Why would you want to go to class 3, which is considered as the pure sciences group? I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it. Now, I want you to, while you're thinking about that, I want you to take a look at this video that I have found for you. And this will give you some ideas why you should be really considering a career in science or why should you be considering continuing your studies in science. Here it goes.
What's the point in studying science if you're not going to be a scientist? What if you want to be a game designer or a chef or run your own business? It's easy to see how studying science will help a budding biochemist. They need to know facts about molecules, atoms, and chemical reactions. But science isn't just about knowing stuff. No scientist knows what they're about to discover. Science is a way of thinking. It's about how you look at the world. Science is questioning what people tell you, even your teachers. Studying science develops a wide set of transferable skills. You learn to approach problems in an organised way and work out creative ways of solving them. You learn how to get things wrong and analyse why. How to be open-minded about new or alternative ideas that challenge your thinking. And how to have the courage to change your mind and try again. Science gives you tools to approach any of life's problems. As DNA pioneer Rosalind Franklin said, science and everyday life cannot and should not be separated. So how can studying science help you? Game designers use logic and data skills to build fun, realistic game worlds. They need to test and evaluate their work and adjust their plans. All things you learn in science. Journalists have to be able to observe, research, and think critically. Whatever they report on, a scientific background will hone the skills they need. Studying science gives a chef the cutting edge they need to be precise under pressure, try new techniques, organise teams, manage budgets, and run their own restaurants. A scientific approach helps a sports coach to observe strengths and weaknesses and adapt schedules. It helps them understand how to methodically change diet or lifestyle to achieve better results. And someone who runs their own business needs to evaluate data, build plans, and be confident presenting their ideas to others. Almost any career benefits from the inquiring, innovating, and questioning mindset that comes from studying science. In a world of change, there will always be careers we can't yet imagine. Studying science opens the doors to thousands of jobs and careers. And it gives you the skills and flexibility to choose what you want to do. Where could science take you?
I hope that will emphasize the point that perhaps your science teachers have already told you that science it prepares you for life. I know that Mr. Gustavo Martinez, Ms. Lineiri Campos, Mr. Tarche, Mr. Fausto Burgos have always tried to instill that way of thinking that science is not just about learning facts, but about actually being able to develop a critical mind. Critical skills that you learn in science will help you in anything that you know on your life. I've always tell my students, if I would be the Prime Minister of Belize anytime, which I hope I'm not, I would tell them every single needs to have science as a class in any study that they do. So if you want to study business, you want to study agriculture, you want to study humanities, you want to study engineering, anything that you want to study, science should be part of your life. Why? Because once you have a critically thinking mind, once you know how to problem solve, how to approach problems in a methodical manner, then that means that your life will definitely become easier. Like the video mentioned, science is not only if you want to be a scientist. Scientists actually are very specialized people that not much young people, I would say, want to gear towards that. It's a very difficult lifestyle. But science will not only prepare you to be a scientist, will prepare you to be technically anything that you want to be in your life. Because for anything that you do in life, you must be critically. So, what do you need if you want to go to the science class? So, here we're going to see that unfortunately, we only have one science class. Out of the 6 classes in Perform, we only have one science class, which is class 3. And most of the time, we have many people applying, so we can only accommodate a maximum of 32 or 30 students. So when the time to decide comes to who will go to science or who will to science or who is not, then this is technically our rubric that we use for determining whether a student is a good candidate for science for 3 or not. First, you need to have X in math, and I'll explain that a little bit later on. I will leave that for a little mystery afterwards. But you need to be really good in math to go to science. You need to have very good grades in English, because English you need to read a lot in science, and you need to be able to comprehend and understand what you're reading. And definitely, of course, you need to have good grades in integrated science. I've had sometimes students that tell me, "Sir, I want to go in science. I really want to go in science." And when I check their grade, where there are report cards, they are failing science. That is contradictory. You cannot be telling me that you want to go to science, and I see that your science grade is very low. So definitely, good grade in science is necessary. Be able to read, because even though science, we're trying to make it more practical approach, it also has a very heavy content aspect, and that then requires that you read a lot. So if you do not like to read, science might not be the best option for you. Critical thinking skills. Hopefully by now, the science teachers in first and second form have done a very good job. Have already started to hone your critical thinking skills, because you will definitely need that for the science class. And of course, your passion for science. Many students tell me, "Sir, should I go to science?" I ask them, "Do you like science?" And they tell me no, but that means you should not go to science. Don't be geared out because your friends want to go to science, you want to go. That's a common mistake that a lot of students do. They go where their friends go. That should not be the main reason why you should be going to science, right? You should have this innate passion for science. Let me tell you, from when I was in primary school, science was my favorite subject. That was my highest grade in almost every year of primary school, secondary, tertiary. When I went to sixth form, you then to do a master's degree, I always made sure that my grade for science was the best one, because I really had that passion for science. So you need to have that one. Now, what subjects do we offer in science? Well, besides the normal curriculum that we have, your majors will be biology, chemistry, physics, and IT. These are the 4 majors you'll be doing. IT, I understand, is a major for all the classes that you have. So whether you go to 3-1, 3-5, or 3-6, or 3-3, IT is a major. But only in class 3 you're going to be having biology, chemistry, and physics as a major. Now, biology, I am the biology teacher. So if you go to science, I'll be either it will be me or Mr. Chan biology. And let me tell you, biology to me is one of the most interesting subjects that you could ever take. Why? Because all of us are humans. All of those need to know about our body. We need to know about life itself. Let me tell you, life is something so mysterious that scientists still are not able to fully explain and comprehend what life is. It's ever changing, and the vast knowledge that we have about life is very perplexing. In biology, we're going to learn about your body, about the human body. This amazing structure that scientists are still trying to determine how it functions. We're going to be looking at how your brain functions, the structure of your brain and how it functions. The brain has been considered and is still considered one of the most mysterious and amazing organs of the body. That little big blob of fat, you wouldn't believe it, but most of your brain is fat. That amazing blob of fat is so mysterious in its functioning. The scientists are just trying to unravel the mysteries of the brain. Who knows? Perhaps you might become a neuroscience after you finish at the Escuela México, and you might be able to shed some light about all these mysteries that the brain has. We're going to be looking at things like how is it that one single cell, after a fertilized ovum, after the sperm fertilizes that ovum, how a single microscopic cell can give rise to a whole new person, to a baby. How is it that this is one of the greatest mysteries of life? How do every single structure in the human body is developed? We'll be talking about embryology, we'll do about reproduction, we'll be doing about the respiratory system, about the digestive system. All the systems of the body will be going and really indulging into it. For example, I might ask you, what is the function of your nose? And let me tell you, you'll be surprised that many of you do not even know what is the function of your nose. I know what you will tell me. Oh, your nose is to breathe. Oh, your nose is for smelling. That's what they told you in primary school. That's not true. Well, at this level, that's not true. I could go and cut off your nose. You're going to have a big hole on your face, and you can still breathe and you can still smell. So the nose is not there for breathing or smelling. The nose has other functions. And there are many other parts of your body. You're going to be surprised what are the functions of those parts of your body. So we will do a very good section about the human body. And that's another thing I always tell my students. If I was the Prime Minister of Belize, I would make sure that you cannot graduate from high school if you do not have a course in human anatomy and human physiology, how your body is structured and how your body functions. Because if people would have some basic understanding about their body, let me tell you, many preventable diseases like diabetes, which is one of the leading killers in Belize, could be prevented. Why would people be smoking if they would know the effects of smoke on the body? What things that we have been consuming as food, like processed, particularly processed meat, how do they contribute to development of cancer later in life? Why is it that the diet high in salt, people like chips, oh, you like chips, definitely. How that diet in chips and coke can affect you so much afterwards when you become older. So definitely we're going to be in biology, we'll talk about a lot about the human, but not only about the human body, we'll also talk about plants. Botany is the study, the scientific study of plants. And even though most students say, oh, sir, that is boring, let me tell you, life as it is could never exist without plants. Every single thing that we eat, that we consume as food, because some of us like to eat a lot of nonsense, chewing on your pencil and swallowing it and chewing on your pen. We don't eat that as food, but anything that we consume as food comes directly or indirectly from plants. So we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about other animals. So we're not going to be selfish thinking that we humans are the center of the universe. We'll talk about the so much biodiversity that we have, especially like Belize, our rainforests, our forest reserves. How do these plants and animals interact with each other and make this ecosystem so beautiful that it attracts so many tourists? We'll also be talking about genetics and environmental studies. In genetics, we'll be talking about why is it that you look not like your mother nor your father, hopefully not like your neighbor, but you look like your great grandfather or your grandfather. We'll be touching on some very, very controversial issues like evolution. Now, some of my students, they love this topic because we have some very lively discussions about is it true what the Bible says, Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, or is it just a poetic representation of how man evolved as a species? Let me tell you, if you go to a river and you see a crocodile, that crocodile has been on Earth for over 200 million years. But when you look in the mirror and you look at yourself, you have only been on Earth as a human for the past 100,000 years. Not even a million years is our species old. While crocodiles, most other species, turtles, sharks, and so forth, most of them have been millions of years. Why is it that we are so special, that we are the new ones coming in? Why are we so different and at the same time so alike from other ones? We'll be talking about the environment, about our forests, how cutting our forests is affecting not only our tourism industry, but also how is it affecting also global warming, climate change, our rivers, our seas. the intricate relationship in our barrier reefs, which is the main attraction for tourists coming to Belize. How is it that this very, very tough ecosystem is so fragile? How we can easily destroy our barrier reefs, which is considered one of the greatest wonders of the world. Many, many people travel from faraway places to Belize just to come and see our barrier reef, not knowing that it is a very fragile ecosystem. So we'll talk all about that in biology. But of course, I don't want to leave behind chemistry, as chemistry is also a very important subject that you will be doing in class 3.3. We'll be talking about chemicals. Now, what is a chemical? You know, I don't know what is a chemical, sir. Every single thing around you is a chemical. Your body is a composition of many, many elements. Our body contains about over 60 different elements, but only about 29 of them play an important or vital role in our existence and our survival. So we'll be looking at things that you cannot even see. The smallest particle that scientists have described. We're now, before it was the atom, we're talking about now the quantum physics that involves tiny, tiny subatomic particles. So Miss Lineri or Miss Melissa will tell you, if you can smell it, touch it, or if you can see it, then it is a chemical. And if you cannot, it is still a chemical. Every single thing around us is made up of particles, is made up of matter. So air that we breathe that we cannot see, we cannot smell, we cannot touch, even that air is made up of matter. So chemistry is very, very important for all of us because every single thing that you see around, if you look at your bed, you look at your computer, you look at your cell phone, look at yourself, you look at a tree, every single thing is made up of matter. And chemistry is technically that, the study of matter. Now, physics. This is Mr. Burgos' bag and Mr. Luis Gonzalez' bag. Physics now is something really marvelous. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that you really need to have very good grades in math to be considered for the science group. Now, this is the reason why. Physics is technically applied math. And let me tell you, most people don't like math. But if you're going to go into science, you better start to like math, and not only like math, but also love math. I'm an advocate of math. If you want to go into higher studies in science, you will need math in everything. And if you want to go and venture into physics related fields, even definitely more so. Because math is something that you will definitely need a lot for physics. So if we have been emphasizing about very good grades in math, is because in physics you will need that. Physics is technically what you applied math. And what is physics all about? Physics is simply the study of energy, matter, and how these two work together. We'll be talking about forces. We'll be talking about things that you can relate every day. So you see a small car and two small cars crash, and what is the problem? How much damage is done? But if you have a small car crashing out with a trailer truck, how would be the damage? Why does that happen? We're talking about momentum. We're talking about centripetal force. We're talking about so many things that happen around you that you're not even conscious about. Physics is about motion. It's about gravity, about the stars, about the universe. Let me tell you, most of the time when people think about this, about science, they think about geniuses. And when they think about geniuses, they think about Albert Einstein. And Albert Einstein, let me tell you, and I will humbly accept that, is one considered one of the greatest scientists of all times. And he was made physics because this is one of the most widely diverse subjects that you can get. Physics will teach you about everything, about heat, about light, about forces, about quantum mechanics, about nuclear particles. Physics is very closely married to chemistry because chemistry we're talking about matter and physics we're talking about energy and matter, right? We always say, okay, science students always refer to this equation E equals mc squared, which is one of Einstein's equations that he developed, and that eventually was the birthplace of nuclear energy. But even though we might think about nuclear energy as bad, well, I will tell you what one time Mr. Einstein said. He said, if I had known that my contribution to science in nuclear energy would have been used to produce these powerful radioactive weapons, these thermonuclear bombs, I would have never done that. So He was a man of very high principles, not only about discovering things new in science, but about ethics. What use are we giving to the discoveries in physics? Fortunately for us, most of the discoveries in physics are used for good. Thanks, the light bulb has evolved. And your cell phone that you use, that is actually, believe it or not, that's a combination of physics and information technology. If you would tell your grandfather or your great grandfather 70 years ago, Grandpa, I have a little thing here, a little device on my hand that if I want to call my cousin that is studying in China, I can be seeing him and speaking to him at the same time. And we could be doing a live conversation through this tiny little device I have at my hand. If you would have told any old person or any person 100 years ago that, they would have looked at you and they would say, you know what, you have been smoking that thing, or to go to the mental institution. You must be crazy. You're not crazy. These things have become a reality. If you would have told your grandpa 100 years ago, someday we're going to go to Mars and land in Mars and travel around in Mars. Let me tell you, many devices have been sent to Mars. They have landed on Mars, and if you look at the news these days, they have been sending videos, live streaming videos from Mars. Now, Mars is thousands and thousands and thousands of miles away from Earth. But thanks to people that are in engineering and physics and astronomy, that is now possible. They have landed crafts, something like aircrafts and Land Rovers, Land Rover, the jeeps that we see around. But this is what the name that is given to these new devices that have landed in Mars, and they have been riding around the surface of Mars, and they have been sending images about what this planet looks like. And this is a major outbreak in science, and this has been possible because of physics. Physics has made our lives so much more comfortable. Thanks to physics people, we have satellites out there, and thanks to satellites, you can call your grandparent or you can call your cousin or your friend from Taiwan or from Korea, and you can have a live conversation with them. Thanks to physics, we have also had X-ray machines, we have radars, and we have other things that are now considered something common, but at one time they were even considered science fiction. So science is a very, very interesting subject. It's a very interesting field, and I really want you to consider about going and applying for science class 3. Now, I'm not here to convince you to go to science. I'm not here to encourage you to go to science. I'm not here also to discourage you, because I think that everybody has a vocation, has an aptitude. If you like science, now this is the class to go. If you like it, don't bother about it. I'll be honest with you. I've had students that have been adamant and stubborn. Sorry, I want to go to science. I look at the science grades and they're not convincing. But the parents come in, they call the parents, they call the principal, they bring police. Oh, my son wants to go on science. Then, but he's not showing that he has this passion for science. His grades in science are low, his grades in math are low, but they still want to go. And you know, sometimes because we don't have much choice, okay, we allow them. And what they do, they just go occupy space and then they feel second semester and they're out. So some people say, is science easy, sir? Let me tell you, any field of study is easy if you like it. So if you like agriculture, class 3-1 will be good for you, or class 3-6. If you like about tourism, class 3-2. But if you like about science, well, definitely class 3-3 will be one of the best choices. So what careers can you get in science? Now, science has a very, very broad spectrum of careers that you can get. But here are some of the major ones that most I have seen that most of my students for the past so many years that I've been at the Escuela Mexico have been going for. One of the main ones is medicine. And let me tell you something, about 4 or 5 years ago, I felt so proud when I had a cadre of 5 doctors, 5 graduates of Escuela Mexico that went to Cuba to do their studies in medicine. They came back to Escuela Mexico and they did a presentation for my science class. All of them graduated from the science group, and all of them graduated at the same time. from Cuba with their degree in medicine. They were medical doctors. It made me feel so proud. Right now we have, I think the last one that went last year is Mr. Christian Ardon from San Narciso. He was at one time from San Joaquin, but now he's from San Jose. He's studying medicine in Cuba. He got a scholarship. Before they used to offer, I think it was 10 or 8 scholarships. And let me tell you, Escuela México students have always been getting these scholarships. Now, I understand that they only give 1 or 2 scholarships per year to go to study medicine in Cuba. And almost every year, we have at least one student from Escuela México going and getting their degree. So we're not only talking about doctors, we're talking about nurses. Science has to prepare for nurses, physiotherapists, lab technicians, radiology. Radiologists are the people that are taking the CAT scan, the MRIs, pharmacists, people that are trained how to deliver and to prescribe, not really prescribe, but to deliver and follow prescriptions of doctors for medicines. Dentists, let me tell you, Belize has a shortage of dentists. Over this COVID pandemic, I wanted to go to a dentist. And it was a hula baloo to get a dentist. I had to make an appointment 5 days before time so that I could finally get to see a dentist. I need to do a little cleaning up of my teeth, and it was so difficult. They were so booked that they told me, you know what, Mr. Magani, I have to wait until Saturday or Sunday. If you're willing to come Sunday, then I can attend to you. So dentistry is one of the fields in medicine that have not been exploited that much by Belizeans. I think we need to encourage more Belizeans to go and do dentistry. Pathologists, these are the people that are now very busy right now. So when you hear about the COVID report, oh, that so many people got infected, so many positive results. These are pathology working at the Central Pathology Lab. One of my students, he's from Concepcion, is working at the pathology lab right now. I have been in contact every now and again. And let me tell you, they will never run out of work. Now, this COVID-19 pandemic showed something very important to everybody. Who are the people that are really, really essential when it comes to survival of a pandemic? Let me tell you, doctors, nurses, all of those that you see there, very important role in this pandemic. Some time ago, I was talking with one of my colleagues, one of the teachers in Spain. I was telling them about this email that I wrote, that I received, sorry, and I read, and it mentioned that okay, when they had the lockdowns, most of the world was on lockdown around May and April of last year. They interviewed the Minister of Health of Spain, and they were telling her what are her feelings towards this thing of the pandemic, and he said, if we had been paying our scientists what we pay to our football players, perhaps have occurred. Now now that we're talking about last year, April and May, say people are now praying for the vaccine for COVID to come out. Why don't we go and ask Ronaldo or Messi to come and produce that vaccine? Because these are the people that are paid millions of dollars for just playing football. And our scientists are not that. Scientists are well paid, but not as much as football players. So for this COVID-19 pandemic may change things around. Now, I know some of you may like animals, so you might think about perhaps a career in veterinarian. You might be curious to become a veterinarian. And veterinarian also means, you're going to be dealing with dogs and cats. I have a student that graduated from Escuela México quite some years ago. She's already into veterinary sciences, and she's mainly making a lot of money with what do I mean by livestock. She's attending to some of the cattle, the pigs, the chicken, the hens that lay the egg, the chicken that we eat for meat. So veterinary also means attending dogs and cats. So besides attending dogs and cats, what the veterinary do? They do a lot of things. They attend to all types of animals, not only cats and dogs. Engineering. This is one of the fields that Belize is very in dire need. And that's where physics and chemistry and to some extent some biology comes to play. Belize has a shortage of engineers. When you have these big mega projects coming in, like the Chalillo Dam, like the Vaca Dam, when you had the Mollejon starting off, Santander sugar factory coming in, it was sad to see that these companies had to import engineers from abroad. They had to bring Mexican and Guatemalan and Taiwanese engineers to work in this project because we do not have enough engineers. And let me tell you, science will give you a very good background to go into engineering. Engineers earn as paid jobs in Belize because we have a shortage. And why? Because people are afraid of math and physics. But math and physics are the main subject that you need for engineering. And there are many different types of engineering. They have civil engineering, building those huge, magnificent buildings that, hotels, skyscrapers. Environmental also play a role. We are talking now of a combination of biology, chemistry, and physics that are monitoring. Like, for example, right now, there's a consultancy going on about the new river in Orange Walk. I think you do remember what happened with the new river in Orange Walk a couple of years ago when it was sinking so bad because of pollution. Engineers are part of the solution of those problems. So engineering is one poorly exploited fields of study in Belize, and I hope that we can encourage some of you to come and do your science studies and perhaps later on go into engineering. Naturalists are people that work with anything that has to do with nature and environment. You can become a botanist, think about the forest. I know people that was hiring botanists when they were doing their carbon sequestration program at La Milpa and Ilbank Resource Station. We have ecologists, marine biologists, and entomologists. Marine biologists are very much in demand in Belize. Keep in mind that our barrier reef, our seagrass beds, and our mangrove are some of the most important tourist attractions in Belize. And tourism is one of our main economies. And I was talking to Miss Femi, I hope I probably know you know Miss Femi. She's the one, and she was telling me, no, but tourism is the main industry in Belize, is the number one industry in Belize. I told her, yes, but without marine biologists, your industry would collapse. If we do not have marine biologists monitoring the health of our reef and developing strategies how to preserve it, how to actually promote its development, tourism, because most of the tourists that come to Belize, they come because of our reef. So there's a very high demand for my marine biologists. I remember one of my students from this San Pedro, it's a girl, by the way. She actually, I once went to Saltwater Key. I took a group of friends there, then because I like Saltwater Key. Those are the South Keys right off the coast of Dangriga. And what? That's one of my former students. And I was, what are you doing here? And she told me, sir, I'm the station manager for the Saltwater Key Marine Reserve. And I was so pleased that one of my students was managing a marine reserve. And it was a girl. So and that made me even more happy because that shows that not only male but females can also do these very important jobs. And let me tell you, there is a high demand for marine. Also, another one, entomologists. Entomologists are scientists that actually become specialized in insects. As a matter of fact, we had a teacher at Escuela a few years ago. You can ask about him, Mr. Adriano Vasquez. He used to teach science and agriculture. And he was calling by Baja, and then he was calling by Oirsa, and he even in El Salvador doing a very well paid job because he was the only trained entomologist in Belize. Imagine that in all of Belize, you only had one person that was thoroughly trained in entomology, and that at that time was Mr. Adriano Vasquez, a teacher from Escuela Médico. And the Ministry of Agriculture told the Ministry of Education, you know what, I need this man because we have a man, and he is the only one that is actually trained how to run this project. And he eventually left, and he went out. Now I understand his contract is expired and he's now working with UB. But those are some of the careers that you could think of. Now I know a lot of you like to see CSI. I have a lot of my students that tell me, oh, sorry, I want to go on and study forensics now. Forensic investigator is also comes under the realm of science, but let me tell you, you need to have a very good stomach, you need to have a very good tolerant sense of smell. Because at one point I thought that I could perhaps be a forensic investigator, but after seeing some dead bodies and smelling them particularly, I changed my mind completely. I have a friend that works in the forensic department in Orange Walk, and he told me, whenever you have any student that really thinks about that he wants to go into forensic investigation, send them to me. I will take them out to the field so that they work with me one day. And if they stand one day, that means they're made for forensics. But that's a very interesting and let me tell you, very well paid career that you can get. Now, in physics also, if you go into more physics and math, then you can become a pilot. For piloting, you need to have a very good sound background in math and physics. You could become a commercial or a military pilot. Now, we're not talking about the pilot of the stove, right? We're talking about pilots that start actually flying planes. I have several students when I used to teach in San Pedro. I have several of my students, science students, that are now pilots. So every now and again, I get a little free ride, not anymore. But I used to get some little free rides at one time because some of my students were pilots. So these are some of the very few careers that you can think about in science. I'll have a few more that will not go into more in detail, like liars. If you want to become a criminal liar, science will definitely help you. You need to have a very good broad spectrum mind that you can problem solve. Go and become a geneticist, an evolutionist, genetic engineering. Let me tell you, that's one of the fastest developing branches in biology, and that has been coming up of new types of crops, new types of livestock that before it would take decades to develop by selective breeding in agriculture. Now biologists, microbiologists are now actually going into the cell, taking out the genes and changing, moving genes from one species to another. That's something marvelous. Controversial at one time, yes, but also very marvelous. We're talking about geologists. Geologists are people that into natural sciences. They're talking about studying rocks and rock formations. Paleontologists are people that study ancient plants and animals that existed. Chemists, if you're going to be working as a chemist in a lab, you could be working in BSI, you could be working at Company of Belize, you could be working at Santander. Data analyst, that is a combination between physics and IT, and that is in very much demand, especially now that we have the pandemic and everything is going virtual, is everything is going into the information technology area. And of course, if you want to be poor like us, then you can become a science educator, become a teacher, a professor, or a researcher, right? I have many of my students actually teaching along with me at the Escuela Mexico, and they were science students. I have students from many years ago, now they are UB professors. They're teaching at the University of Belize, some of them teaching at Sixth Farm. Teaching is a very noble profession. And if you want to become a science teacher, let me tell you, be prepared not to be rich, be prepared to deal with stress, but be prepared to have many very, very, very nice rewards later on in life. Because teaching is a very noble profession. Even though our Prime Minister says, oh, we don't do sacrifices, let me tell you, I think that teachers do many, many, many more sacrifices than any other profession. So with that, I wanted to take a look at one last little short video. I think we have a couple of minutes more of time. So let me share with you a little video that I found also very interesting that perhaps can even encourage you a little bit more on what you need or what other the opportunities are there in science. So here it goes.
So, you love science? Well, what is science and where could a career in science take you? Science is the best way we have of understanding nature. We may have an idea of how something works, but as new knowledge becomes available, our ideas change, and this is what makes science so exciting. In school, you learn lots of facts, but science is about how you think too. Scientific thinking helps you approach problems in an organised way. You learn to be open-minded about new or alternative ideas that challenge your thinking. It also harnesses the power of your imagination to solve the problems that challenge society. Your scientific journey starts with your core subjects in school: chemistry, maths, biology, computing, and physics. These are the doors that will lead you into a world of subject choices you might not have heard of, such as geochemistry, data science, biophysics, and many more. You'll be able to find the subject that ignites your passion. There are familiar careers in science, like being a doctor, a vet, or working in a lab. But these are only a few of the options. From rainforests to the hearts of volcanoes, from exploring the universe to quantum computing, scientists are there, increasing understanding of how things work and using their skills to drive innovation. As a scientist, you could be creating new technologies to combat climate change, finding cures for diseases, or designing sustainable alternatives to plastics. A career in science gives you a chance to make a positive impact on our planet, and there will often be exciting opportunities to collaborate with colleagues from across the globe, and even travel to different countries. As science is always developing, you could find yourself in a career that doesn't exist yet. Science can offer job satisfaction, doing something you enjoy that makes a difference to people's lives. There's also flexibility to move between different disciplines and the incredible variety of roles and responsibilities that the scientific world offers. Science is for everyone. It's your abilities that count, not your background, gender, or race. So, with all these varied careers to choose from, what sort of scientist will you be?
So, are you ready for science? Like it was mentioned there, science might be preparing for jobs that don't even exist yet, right? Many different opportunities. Doors are open when you go into science. This pandemic has, like I mentioned before, this pandemic has come to teach us a lot of things. I really like that little part there. You see that at the end, new vaccine approved. You know how many people throughout the world have been praying for scientists to come up with a vaccine, and now we have several vaccines coming up. And that may be one of the ways that we might ease out, not completely walk out of this pandemic. Thanks to what? To people that took science as a career. And keep in mind, those scientists that were developing these vaccines were students just like you, that one day were sitting down, just like you are doing now, and thinking, should I go into science? Should I go into this? And they decided to go into science, and they made a big change in the world, actually saving us from this very dreaded disease that has ravaged the world and is causing so much pain in so many countries. So, at the end of the day, science prepares you for life. It's something that we are going to have with you till the end of your days. I've always tell students, one of the biggest things that science has done to open my mind to so many possibilities, to be able to think critically, to look at things in a way that other people don't see. And sometimes that has earned me a lot of friends and sometimes a lot of enemies. But that is what science is all about. So if you think about going into science, be prepared to go into a very interesting exploration, a discovery of things that you might never thought that you could ever learn or think about. If you have any more questions about science, you can always contact your past science teacher. I think Mr. Gustavo Martinez, Ms. Lineri Campos, Mr. Charles Che, and Mr. Fausto Burgos will be more than glad to answer your questions or your concerns. Or if you cannot access them or you want to access me, then this is my contact number and my email. I have an open consultation time policy, so as long as I am available, I will be answering your calls or your texts. So if you have any questions, you have any concern, if your parents are not sure and they want to talk about to a science teacher whether they believe the science is right for you or not, let them call us, let them contact us, right? Either your science teachers or they can contact me directly, and I perhaps can be able to assist and to clarify any doubts or concerns that you might have. So think about it. Science is for everybody, and you should be considering perhaps making Tree as your choice. So thank you very much, and God bless you, and keep safe and take care. I'll see you around there.